Hey everyone, my name is Nicole Lee. Today I'll be presenting my creative critical reflection for my film introduction in AICE Media Studies AS. My presentation will consist of discussing the conventions and representations portrayed in our film intro, the audience engagement and distribution, the development of my production skills, and the technology we incorporated. Jumping right in, how does my product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? Well, the result of our film was a combination of horror and psychological thriller genres to portray seriously overlooked social issues, specifically domestic violence, relationships, and mental health. The media conventions we use to give a sneak peek into our film world with the 2 minutes are our usage of flashbacks, camera focus such as our female lead fidgeting with her symbolic necklace or flinching, jump scares, distorted sound, and camera angles to create an unsettling effect and to give an insight to the psychological instability of our aggressor, Hunter. We also used a reverse zoom, focus pulls, sound design, and effects to create the thriller and provoke an eerie feeling which tied down to the psychological thriller aspects. These techniques with the genres were used to help communicate deeper meanings, not only to just create an effect. The film introduction I created with my group mates represents social issues of domestic violence in young adult relationships, gender roles such as submissive girl and aggressive boy, and mental disorders like psychosis. The hallucinations, erratic thinking, delusions, and relationship dynamic undertones aided in demonstrating how unstable and dangerous relationships can be. Our biggest reinforcement for these ideas were done through symbolism. For example, the names of our characters, Fawn and Hunter, and our title, Deer in Headlights, reflects the predator versus prey and the power imbalance in abusive relationships. Our title also represents the idea that our victim was drawn to a force, in this case her significant other, that ends up hurting and killing her. The environment and settings also strongly contrast the dialogue and dynamic between our couple as we see them on a nice picnic enjoying the beach, but then it suddenly becomes slightly cloudy to highlight the reality against the delusion of Hunter's psychosis. We also heavily incorporated sound as an indicator for situational changes and reality versus delusion. The main backtrack we picked was intentionally lighthearted and upbeat to emphasize the idea that regardless if relationships might look lovey-dovey on the outside, you never know what is actually happening within it. When the music came to a stop, it meant we were taking a step into reality. Other sound effects like heartbeat, running, distorted, and distant sound were meant to exaggerate and invoke the feelings our characters were experiencing onto our audience. Fawn's soft tone and body language strongly differed from Hunter's erratic movements, which further reinforced gender roles and helped us incorporate body language like flinching and fidgeting to help show control and fear in their dynamic without any dialogue. We made the climax of our film introduction overly dramatic so our audience could get a look into the consequences of brushing off domestic violence as normal or not serious, since you never know how it could end. There have been countless times where people never escape domestic violence, so the ending of our intro gives room for the audience to interpret and anticipate for the rest of the film of whether our male lead Hunter will be haunted by his action if Fawn actually is dead because he's so mentally deranged if he repeats his actions, but our viewers need to watch the rest to find out. The overall goal of the film introduction was to use horror and psychological thriller to bring attention to domestic violence in all types of relationships, whether young or old. While we used a stereotypical example of the girl as a victim and the guy as the aggressor, our message applies to everyone who might be facing or seeing it happen to do something about it before it's too late. The way we went about exploring our message by giving an extreme version of the reality of abusive relationships is to urge to not romanticize and understand the consequences of society ignoring these issues. Moving on, how does my product engage with audiences and how would it be distributed as a real media text? For audience engagement, my film intro aims to invoke a meaningful sense of emotional connection within my audience, even if it might be uncomfortable. We want to really emphasize how important drawing awareness to domestic violence is and showing how victims need an advocating voice. We use close-up shots and very intense scenes to give our audience a better feel of the characters' emotions and experiences firsthand, like with Fawn's flinching when Hunter reaches out, Hunter grabbing Fawn's hand, or her immediate submission during their argument to highlight the early warning signs or just to recognize the signs of abuse, which will help our viewers to be able to spot these types of patterns in their life. We also emphasize our audience to recognize and resolve abusive behaviors and unhealthy relationships before they escalate beyond fixing. For distribution, we want our product to be released in theaters and on as many streaming platforms as possible to reach a wide audience. Even though our film intro plays into common stereotypes, we want everyone to be aware. We would want to market to all age groups, but especially younger viewers, since they are probably in their early stages of their relationship or tend to romanticize toxic relationships. While we want as many people we can get to watch our potential film, we have to be careful with marketing since the nature of the topic of domestic violence is a very sensitive subject for most, but it's also something that shouldn't be avoided in society. Now, how did my production skills develop throughout this project? While I learned a lot from this experience developing a film introduction, I learned a lot about how challenging the background process and preparing it for a film can be. Trying to find the most effective and entertaining way to express our message probably took the longest out of this entire process. During this pre-production stage, I learned how to create a storyboard, which helped plan scenes and stay organized, and the importance of researching genres, films, social issues, and more to accurately portray in our film. I also developed many many technical skills like being able to manipulate camera angles and using music and sound effects to create meaning and connections. For example, during Hunter's realization scene, we used cross-cutting to put together an erratic running scene with running of sound effects, which led into a reverse zoom while a heartbeat sound was happening throughout this entire scene to highlight the intensity and thrill of it. A significant part of my learning was editing, as I learned to cut, properly arrange, overlay audio, play with video quality to produce a special effect, whether it was horror flow of scenes or to create a certain feeling as a viewer. Editing music and sound was probably the most challenging since we needed the mouths, body language, timing, and tone to match up perfectly, the music to fade in and out or to be the right volume during dialogue, and adding in effects that would sound realistic. I was personally in charge of makeup and costume design, and I think it really helped me develop an understanding for how it incorporates into a film world. I had to create a realistic murder scene and properly put blood where it was needed on our actor and did her dead girl makeup, which really added to our genre of horror. I think the most important of all of my production skills I was able to learn was how to connect technical elements to create an emotional impact and message. Lastly, how did I integrate technologies such as software, hardware, and online in this project? Well, throughout the development of this project, we used numerous platforms and technologies to end up with our final product. I was able to learn how to navigate WeVideo, which is the main editing platform we use to edit our introduction, including cutting the scenes together, overlapping audio, adding effects, and more. We used CapCut and a free music site to create special effects, adjust audio levels, distort scenes, and play around with the coloring. For filming and audio, we used an iPhone 17 Pro for shooting all of our scenes and recording audio, but we ended up having to do some voiceovers for certain scenes, so we used AirPods Pro and Apple Voice Memos app to record the audio. For editing, we used a MacBook Air and a Chromebook to access our editing platforms and create our individual blog posts. For research, we used Google search engine, previous media we watched, and social media. Google Drive was also really helpful for keeping track and storing all of the files I needed for my blog posts on Google Sites. Overall, the technologies used during this process was either a testament of my skills or a learning experience. Overall, this film introduction project combined media concepts with exploring critical social issues to raise awareness about domestic violence by connecting with our audience and showing how fast these harmful norms could blow out of proportion. Thank you for watching my creative critical reflection on my experience developing my film introduction for AICE Media Studies AS.